We're live.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to celebrate with us Miles Apart by Tanvier Peart. I'm Ariana, as you know, the events coordinator here at LSA. And again, thank you so much for coming. Apologies in advance. You cannot see my face and I'm just a talking voice. Some technical difficulties. But I have the great pleasure of introducing both of our authors we have with us today, Tanvi Peart and Joe Segura. So, starting off with the author of Miles Apart, Tanvi Peart is a future best-selling romance author with a healthy obsession for snacks and happily ever afters. She's a good girl with kinks who spends her days working on public policy in New York and enjoys the wildlife of being a wife and PTA mom. By night, she writes and reads romance books with steamy scenes. And when she's not lost in the land of smut, Tanvier enjoys long walks in Target and the chorus of grunts at the gym. And next, we have our lovely and conversation partner, Joe Segura, who is a USA Today bestselling author. She lives in the Pacific Northwest with her doggo, who vies for her attention with his sweet puppy dog eyes whenever she's trying to write. Her stories feature strong, passionate heroines and drawn upon aspects of her life, such as her Mexican heritage and her fascination with archaeology. When she's not writing, you can find her practicing law, shaking up a mean cocktail, or sitting out on the patio doing BuzzFeed quizzes. Though she doesn't care what the chicken nugget quiz said, her favorite fruit is not banana. So I will go ahead and pass it on to both of our lovely authors just in advance. If you have any questions for either of them, you can go ahead and put it in the YouTube chat and they will go ahead and answer it at some point during the event. So, Tanvier, Joe, over to you.
Awesome.
Thanks so much.
Well, thanks for having us. And thank you so much for asking me to do this event with you. I'm so excited to meet you virtually, even though our paths have crossed many times. So this is very fun. And they're going to be crossing again soon as well in good old Toledo, Ohio. So
Yeah.
this is just a good time. I will apologize in advance. My dog is being very active right now, so hopefully he's not too distracting. But we'll go ahead. I got some fun questions for you, and then we'll open it up to the audience to see if they've got any questions. But let's just go ahead and start by having you tell us a little bit about your most recent release, Miles Apart, which, by the way, I love your background. You got the whole Miles Apart background, which is fabulous. So tell us in your words, what is Miles Apart about?
Thank you. And thank you so much for doing this with me, Joe. And real quick, shout out to my dad who is not watching this because the Ravens are playing. So, Father, when you see this playback, you know what you did. But Miles Apart is the second book in a Chance at Love series. It's an interconnected series, so you could read it as sort of a standalone, but this one overlaps with the 7 Month Itch. It is a frenemies to lovers story about the two best friends of a married couple, Miles and Emma, who you saw in the 7 Month Itch, or if you didn't read it yet, that's okay. They swear off relationships. They're for the streets. They've been circling each other for about 15 years because, again, they're the best friends of a married couple. And when it's time to play, they play. So Emma is
Mhm.
a no BS female main character. I would say she's a mix between Samantha Jones from Sex and the City and also Tony Childs from Girlfriends, handles her own business. Miles, I always say, is like a cinnamon roll hero with 50 Cent audacity. So if you ever watched 50 Cent in interviews, then you know that it's very high and he's going to
Mhm.
test you.
That's like the perfect description of him. Like he comes on the page and you're like, who is this man? But
Yeah.
then you're like, oh, but who is this
Who's
man?
this man?
Right? I'm like, okay, okay, you got me. So you mentioned that this is, part of your series with the 7 Month Itch. Now, do readers have to read 7 Month Itch first? I already know the answer to this, but I'm asking for people who are watching. Do they have to read it first to then read Miles Apart, or can you read them in any order?
Lord, I know that Nika and Amber, if they're watching, be like, yes, say yes, because she's lying. So my answer is no with an asterisk. So Miles Apart, I've had people who've read it and never read The 7 Month Itch, and you can follow it from start to finish. But because it starts at the singles retreat, the same singles retreat that The 7 Month Itch takes place, because it was Emma's idea to go there, there is some overlap. So I'll say it this way. Read The 7 Month Itch first, because I feel some people like cussing me out in the atmosphere to say yes, if you want sort of that flavor, and you'll also start to see Miles and Emma disappear a little bit in The 7 Month Itch, and then Miles Apart will flavor where they went. Or you could start with Miles Apart, and if you're very curious about the marriage in crisis that is Justice and Terrence, then you can go back and read The 7 Month Itch. So either or.
The way I like to put it, because I get this question a lot too, is I like to say I think that the reading experience is enhanced if you read it in a certain order, but you don't have to read it in that order, right? I'm not here to
Yeah.
tell you when you can read your book and when you can't read your book. Read whatever you want, but I mean, there is overlap, so people just need
Mhm.
to know that going in.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit about this singles retreat because I don't know if this is based on experience, but I'm like, if I went to a singles retreat and an ex showed up, I'd be like, oh no, I'm out. I'm
Mhm.
out. So I just have to know, like, what made you, I know that starts in 7 Month Itch, but like what made you want to have the story be kind of starting in that space? I just think
Yeah.
it's hilarious.
I think the short answer is one of those winter Hallmark commercials. I started writing The 7 Month Itch like back in 2021, and the roughest draft ever made. I wrote the book in like 3 weeks. And I think I saw like a Hallmark winter commercial where some people were skiing, and it had to be somewhere like ritzy with snow, and maybe some good fabrics for like the bedding. And I was looking at my husband on the couch, as I often do, like, what if we ever separated? So it was a mix of like random what if in a Hallmark commercial that sort of created the fictitious Vail, Colorado escape for a 7 day singles retreat where two people on the brink of divorce happen to both pop up at.
No, but I gotta know, if this were you, would you stay or would you go?
Lord. So I would say, as much of an extrovert as I am, there are a lot of similar. Justice is my quiet side. So I probably would have packed my bags and be like, you can have it, and took my ass back home. So I would not have stayed.
I wouldn't have stayed either. I would have been out of there, like, nope, not doing this.
Not
Peace,
doing it. Because
peace
somebody might go to jail and you
out.
might be buried with the snow people out in the
Right.
back of the woods. Yeah.
Well, okay, and so this story isn't about Justice and Terrence. This is the story about Miles and Emma, who are
Mhm.
the best friends of Justice and Terrence. And so now let's talk about that. So how would you feel then if this guy, this frenemy of yours, because they're not like true enemies, but they had a thing. They had a thing that happened before, and so
Mhm,
there's some
mhm.
tension there. Now let's talk about what would you do if that guy showed up?
I would stay.
I would
I feel like,
say.
yeah, Emma's a different beast, and I mean that in the best of ways. She can stand her grounds, and
Mhm.
she's not going to move. So if anything, she's going to make him uncomfortable and be like, "You can go home, but I'm staying here," and bringing somebody back to my room or vice versa.
I think that's the thing that like really jumped out at me right away with Emma is she is a badass. And as you know, I love a badass female main
Yeah.
character. So you said that Justice is like your quiet side. Is Emma your badass side?
Mm. Yes and no. Emma's a side that maybe like if I was in my single time, because I don't my husband would be like, wait a minute. In my single
He's like,
days,
you
like
better not be
I
Emma.
know, right? Right? I would want to explore Emma's side. Emma is very free across the board, liberated, owns her body,
Mhm.
uses it, takes what she wants, and is all about her pleasure. So in some cases, like the old Tombier, the single Tombier would aspire to be like Emma. But like tell it like it is, yes, we are very similar that way.
I love that because I would say the same thing about Corey in Raiders of the Lost Heart. She's like, I wish had that much confidence, right? But she, I just love a badass character. And of course, there's always going to be the people who see those really strong female characters and they're like, oh, she's too much or, she's over the top or whatever. But it's like, no, we need to see those characters on the page because these are the kinds of people that we aspire to be. And she
Mhm.
doesn't take anyone's crap, and I love it. Um, so you then have the contrast between her, where Emma's like really strong personality and she takes what she wants. She's going to tell you exactly what she wants. And then you've got Miles, who is the cinnamon roll with the 50 cent audacity.
Yeah.
He is very sweet. And I
Mhm.
mean, you can just tell the minute he shows up on the page, he is all in for her. I felt that. And so, like, why did you want to write these two characters? I mean, I know that the cinnamon roll hero is like something people just they love. So tell me a little bit about why you specifically chose these types of characters.
Yeah, well, I feel like cinnamon rolls are very on brand with me. You're gonna get one with 50 Cent audacity. You're gonna get one that's like a golden retriever. You're gonna get one that's kind of grumpy. And so with Miles, Miles has a really good relationship with his mother. And I feel like, and I'm sort of like, I guess like I don't want to group everybody together, but and with men that I know, especially people I grew up with around the way who grew up with single moms, a lot of times, like if they had good relationships with their mom, it reflects in how they show up and nurture their relationships. And so, Miles, whether you saw him in the 7 month itch or not, is very loud and unapologetic. He says what he feels, how he feels, when he feels it. And so there's a lot of meat there to play around with, but also with his background, with like being from Newark, there's this, assumption that he is just a single dimension or one dimension person. And there's a lot of layers. Like he's smart as hell. He's a
Mhm.
hacker. He does like, the data security and a lot of analysis. But he's also a nurturer. And so I felt like Emma deserved somebody who was literally going to trip over themselves to get to her and possibly get on a plane to follow her. And so she brings a certain level of energy, and Miles definitely matches that energy, but also met his match in Emma because she knocks him down a few pegs. So I thought there were certain similarities between the two of them, but there was also a certain dynamic where they brought out the softer or quiet parts of each other and what that would look like translating to page.
hmm You could really see his nurturing side. I don't want to give too much away for people who haven't read the book yet, but there is a fake dating thing going on, which is one of my favorite tropes. I love fake dating. Um, and you can really see him like he jumps right into that and he
Mhm.
is like, I'm gonna take care of you. And
Yeah.
I don't like the way these people are treating you. And he is like swooping in and which is so hot, right? It's just so sexy the way he does that. So what are some of your favorite tropes? Because I'm seeing a lot of tropes in here. I'm seeing fake dating, cinnamon roll. I'm seeing forced proximity. I'm seeing all these. He falls first, obviously. I mean,
Yeah.
he is got it down bad for her. So like you put them all in and they all work together so well. So
You do.
what are your favorite tropes? Are these your favorites?
Well, surprise, fake dating is probably one of my least favorite tropes because I'm like, I know, but I love books that have them. I love books that have them. But in concept, I'm kind of like, well, why are we pretending? Let's just like
No.
do the thing. But certain situations might require it. So, I would say, if we're categorizing cinnamon roll as a trope, like always has to be there because you can make them grumpy, happy, sneezy, like the whole seven doors. You can make a cinnamon roll. I love Grumpy Sunshine. I also love Single Dad. trope. So I'll probably play around with that in one of my rugby romance books that I'm going to be writing soon. Single mom, because I did Ella Gets the D. I love forced proximity as well. So it's like it's a mix. I think that if they're written well, then I vibe with it. So I'm
Mhm.
pretty open.
Are there any tropes that you don't like? Like you're like, no, I don't want it.
Oh, I feel like everybody would be like, "Oh, miscommunication," and I'm like, "Well, that's
I
kind of
like
realistic.
I like miscommunication.
I do too."
That's
So
real life. Like, think
it
about how many
is.
times like you say something and then like, an hour later, like, "Oh, I wish I had said that. That's not really what I meant." Or you're like, man, did they really mean that? And then you talk to them later on, and like, no, that's not what I meant at all. Like
Yeah,
that
yeah,
to me is so much more real life than fake dating.
yeah, exactly. So I don't think that there's one that I'm just like, ew. Because again, I'll try anything once or twice.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I'm open.
Okay. That's a good answer. I
Do
mean,
you have any that you're like, not my ministry?
I know a lot of people dislike the secret baby trope. And so there's this part of me that's like, yeah, I don't like Secret Baby. But then I'm like, but there was that one book that I really liked that was Secret Baby. And like one of my favorite romance books is Secret Baby. And so I'm like, okay, I guess I can't say that I don't like that trope if one of my favorites has it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And
Again,
like
yeah,
you don't want to yuck someone's yum. So, I will say I'm
yeah.
not a huge fan of like bullies, like bully romance. I don't
Mm,
like bullies in general in life. Like,
yeah. But if they're reforms, like give me a good dark romance where there's
okay,
a character arc, I'm like, do you bully and choke and then you'll say sorry down the road? Like we might be able to work with that. So again,
okay,
I'm flexible.
okay. You're convincing me. Maybe I need to give another bully romance a try. I don't know. We'll see.
I feel like Rita Kent does some good bully romance books, but that's my personal opinion.
Okay, okay. Um, so I love Emma and Justice's friendship. And it's so integral to the story, like just seeing the way that they take care of each other. So even though this is, obviously it's a romance between Miles and Emma, not, it's not a women's fiction about Emma and Justice, you handle it so well and like really
Yeah.
just really make that such an important part of the story where you care just as much about their friendship as you do about the romance. So talk a little bit about, having those other layers in your books and, why did you focus so much on this friendship in this romance between Miles and Emma?
Yeah. Because it's their own love story. I mean, they're not romantically interested in each other, but it gets their own happily ever after in a sort of special way. One of the things I love in books is the concept of chosen or found family, and that's what Justice is to Emma and vice versa. So there is also a very interesting juxtaposition there where Emma comes from wealth. She has a trust fund, which she never uses because she wants to stand on her own. And she's the daughter of a very long-standing and prominent, fictitious US senator. But she grew up in pretty much like a mansion, but nobody was there. And so she spent a lot of time with Justice's house. And so that kind of grounds her in her curiosity about love and relationships, even though she dodges it. And I love the best friends of stories. Sometimes the secondary characters might stick with me as much as the main characters. And Justice and Emma both have like a very unique dynamic where at the singles retreat, it happens in both stories. They both go through different things and they're sharing a suite and they call each other on the phone from each other's bathtubs where, they're eating desserts and sort of just going through the day. And so they can also pick up when things feel off in their relationships and check in. And I feel like just having sort of the threads of that community support is that's what it's about. And I love the concept of found family. And so they're probably one of my favorite, I guess, like best friend pairings. Though Terrence and Miles they're kind of like maybe in a close second, maybe not super close, but like this isn't a giveaway, but when they link up, they have matching board shorts because they want to coordinate. And so, like, who does that? They do. But I love the idea of friendships and friends really being your found family because it's powerful.
Well, that just cracks me up because literally last night I was texting my best friend about I was watching this show where a guy was wearing an outfit that was all like maroon, and she and I do that all the time, and I was like, one of us. So I just think that's super cute. Um, I love that you have that found family trope too, because Emma's family is awful.
Yeah.
I mean, like
No spoiler alert.
no, I'm sorry anyone who hasn't read it. It's pretty obvious, like right away, that they're gonna be awful. But when they go to that very first event, you're just like, who are these people? But I think it's great because it really gives you an opportunity to see the relationship between Miles and Emma really starting to form. Because up
Mhm,
until that point, I don't want to give anything away, but there's a lot of sexual tension between the two of them.
mhm,
And I think that's like the moment where you really start to see more feelings developing between the two of them.
mhm.
Um, and so I just think you did a really great job with building their relationship that way because it starts super, super hot and heavy.
Yeah.
And then, you know, just to see them like develop into something more, it's very well done. I loved it.
Thank you.
Um,
And I did the Gossip Girl references was not expected. Because there's a lot of people on Emma's side of the family who are character names of different Gossip Girl characters. That was not expected, but it pops up at that fundraiser.
I love it. So I hope it's not too noisy here. It is like dumping rain and I have a metal roof. And as you can see, it's a sloped ceiling. So it's very noisy. So sorry, sorry about that. So I already kind of talked about this just in the last comment, but this book was hot.
Just a little bit, Joe. Just a
Just a
little
little
bit.
bit. I mean, I guess you should probably know that just by the cover, right?
I know
Um,
where is it? This side.
right. So I gotta know, since I had dedicated my first book to my mom and dad, um, and said that I hoped it wasn't too spicy for them. And then my mom read it. I don't think my dad has, but my mom has, and she said that it was a little spicy for her. So I need to know, have your parents read your books?
Yeah, so shout out again to my dad, I'm his only child, and he is watching the Ravens game right now, Father. Um, so I'm still a newbie on the block. I just happened to release 3 books in a year this year, and he buys at minimum 14 copies because he thinks that's what it takes to get on the USA Today bestseller
Oh,
list. So
that's
maybe
so
you should
cool.
talk to him and be like, we're gonna need like a little bit more because that's not gonna do it. But yeah, he purchased directly from me 6 copies of Miles Apart so I could sign it, and he gave it to his wife's sisters, and then he'll buy like 10 different copies from other book selling entities. His sister, my aunt, just finished it. And yeah, that's very interesting to get some comments. She liked it a lot and was like, with certain parts, I had to remember you're not my niece in that
Uh-huh.
instance. My sister-in-law reads it, my mother reads it, and yeah, my family are, I guess they got some screws loose and that's where I get it from. So they're very, very supportive. I did warn them that Miles Apart is probably the spiciest book that I've written. The first chapter starts off with Emma waking up from a one night stand who isn't
Mhm.
Miles. So yeah, read at your own risk, but
Mhm.
they come along for the shenanigans.
I kind of liked that. Was the guy's name West, the first guy that she wakes up with? I kind of liked it, and I loved like her like comments about hooking up with him. I was like, all right, I'm into this.
Yeah, gotta
I
go live.
love
It's
those.
fun.
I think that is so sweet that your dad is buying multiple copies. My dad, he tells everybody he can about my books, including our former priest. And I'm
Oh,
like, you guys, you don't need to tell everybody. He's like, no, I need to tell. My mom's like, yeah, he was telling the nurse at the doctor's office. And I'm just like, but it's so sweet. And
yeah,
I'd much rather have my parents telling everyone and being super supportive, right?
yeah, yeah,
Okay, I got more. I got more. Um, can we talk about Carter?
yeah.
He's like one of those guys that on paper, right? Like it's like, yeah, this makes sense, but you can just tell like right away, like, no, no,
Yeah,
no, dude, it's not gonna happen.
yeah. And some's a little fishy. Some's
Right?
a little fishy with Carter.
Right? Oh my God. And I love the way Miles handles him.
We're calling him Crispin. Yeah.
Yes, it's so good. Like, oh my God. But we've all had a Carter in our lives, haven't we?
Yeah. And I think I liked playing, I was about to call him Crispin. I like playing Carter against Miles because again, something that pops up in this book is that Miles is from Newark. And so Newark often has like a certain stereotype and
Mhm.
connotation about the people that come there that can really belittle people and, just overall like the stereotypes. And so Carter tries to get into that because he comes
Mhm.
from money and wears the suits and stuff. And Miles just lets it roll off of his back. Like he sees that Carter's trying to get a rise out of him and he meets him tit for tat for with every occasion. So I liked playing those two against each other and seeing
Mhm.
Crispin get
Mhm.
flustered and Miles remaining unbothered, even though internally he's cussing this man out in his head.
Uh-huh. I loved it. I thought it was great. Okay. So let's kind of switch gears. So we talked about your books, but let's talk about publishing and what it's been like for you. So you've had 3 books come out now.
Yeah,
You've
this is
got
the third.
I saw you have 2 more that you're planning at least. So what's the process been like for you?
Still in development. I'm stumbling forward, finding my way. But I guess since I am indie or self-published, I give myself it. It'll probably take moving forward like 4 to 5 months to actually write the thing, and like another 3 or so months to go through the pipeline. So I'm somebody who is very weird. I love composition notebooks because I was a 90s kid and Ghostwriter was a thing. And I
Oh, I
write by hand.
loved Ghostwriter.
Yeah, shout out to Rob, forever the crush, and Alex too. But writing by hands is how I do things.
Wow,
Yeah,
really?
yeah, it's very weird, but I can't, maybe because like with my 9 to 5, as with many of ours, like we sit in front of a computer.
Hmm.
And so, right, I like colored pens too. But yeah, I write by hand, and once I get to a certain, I guess like a certain point, I'll type it up. And then it's like an audiobook playback. And that's how I write. I also write with horror movies in the background. So
Interesting.
all year round. It's not just a Halloween thing. So that's definitely part of my process. And then I have, a developmental editor, fellow Virgo, who gives me the business and also good pats on the back. The beta reading team who've been with me, for a while now, and then like the other editors and shout out to Ashley Santoro who's done all my covers thus far. So like I have like a little mini team
Hmm.
that I rely on, but that's the process. So the goal is to try and release 2 books a year. So moving forward, that will be sort of the process and the speed.
I am just in awe of you writing your books by hand.
Really
I
not that
cannot
far.
even imagine that. Like I took some notes on things that I want to talk about. I can't even read these notes. So I'm like, shoot, what was I going to ask about? That looks like Carter. Okay. So, I mean, do you write the whole thing by hand and then you type it out?
Well, not so I don't go from start to finish by hand. I'll fill up like maybe I'll go halfway in a composition notebook.
Okay.
So and then I'll dedicate like a weekend to type that up. So I don't wait from start to finish because then I'd be there forever. But yeah, I pace myself. So it
Wow.
works for me, but it's very random. And then also like I like not having a device because I often write on our love seat
Hmm.
downstairs, like you can see downstairs in the living room. And I'll have my noise canceling headphones. And I also like will watch the horror movie on my phone. I can't have it playing on an actual TV because then I can't zone out. It's weird. But that's what the process is. Yeah.
Interesting. Do you have like a go-to horror movie that you turn on or just any horror movie?
I go through franchises. So this time of year, I do the Friday the 13th movie marathon. So Emma and Miles Apart does Friday the 13th marathons
Uh-huh.
out. That's me.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Self-inserting. Scream is my favorite horror movie franchise. I've done The Purge, Poltergeist, probably gonna spin the block on like Paranormal Activity again. So it's a mix. It's very
Okay.
live. Yeah.
Wow. Interesting. What do you think it is about horror movies that uh,
I don't know.
just
Maybe I have like a underlayer of dark romance, but there's something
maybe.
about horror movies, mostly from the 2000s
Uh-huh.
and the 90s. I
The
guess
good years.
the good years. Yeah, I don't do a lot of this new stuff.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
new stuff's more just gory and gross.
Yeah, we don't need to see all that. But
I
yeah, horror
mean,
movies are
remember
the good.
when Scream came out, that was so groundbreaking.
Yes,
Times did you see that movie? I
a
saw it in
lot.
the theater like, I don't know, at least 3 times. It's
Yeah.
like I
So
already knew who did it, but I still saw it 3 times.
yeah. I don't know if I was in middle school when the first one came out, but I remember I might have been in the middle school transitioning to high school. And I remember writing Wes Craven like by hand saying, "Oh, I have this idea for a horror movie, and I think I was gonna call it Reaper." And then his people ended up mailing me back. This is before emails were a thing, like we don't take submissions.
Oh,
So
I
it was
thought you were
like
gonna say they
my
wrote
first
you back
rejection.
and said like, it's a
Let's do
great
it.
idea.
No, I got rejected by Wes Craven's people. Rest in peace, Wes, back when I was in middle school. So
You know
yeah,
what? You put yourself out there.
I did.
So what's been like the best part of publishing since you published your books?
Ooh. I guess writing the story and that people are like rocking with my imagination. That's the thing that's like weird to me in a good way, but also because I'm new and I don't know if you feel this way too, where it's like, oh y'all like this or oh y'all are reading this. Like I made this up. This isn't real, but I think y'all. So I like that. I will say with indie publishing, and I'm still finding my footing, having some flexibility, which can also help. Like I can go at my own pace. So if I need to sort of pull back or stretch a timeline, like that's in my
Hmm.
jurisdiction. There's a lot on your shoulders because like you're carrying it and you carry the upfront cost. So that's not the fun part. But having some flexibility to make certain decisions and see things shake out a certain way.
Okay. Okay. I have to know because they mentioned in your bio that you love snacks,
I
and
do.
I love snacks. And the main character in my next book, she loves snacks. They're in the Amazon, and the first day she gets there, her backpack falls open, and all her snacks come just cascading out of the bag. So I need to know, what are your favorite snacks? These are the very important writing questions that everyone wants to know.
Yeah, well, candy aside, the Welch's fruit snacks,
Oh,
um,
good.
organic Doritos, the white cheddar ones, that's oddly specific, but they are so
Wait, wait.
delicious. Yeah.
Doritos?
Organic Doritos, the white cheddar ones. They're really good. I feel like they taste different.
I gotta write that down.
Yeah.
I need a pen.
When we were in the thick of the
Send me a
pandemic,
message later. I
I will, I
don't
will.
want to forget that.
Well, we were in the thick of the pandemic like a couple years ago, and people were like coveting toilet paper. I was doing that with those organic Doritos.
The organic Cheetos,
Yeah,
those are good too.
yeah, same family, they're
Mhm.
cousins. I guess some popcorn, but one of my favorite snacks, again, it was a self-insert and miles apart, is the parfait. So when Em is eating the vanilla yogurt with the clusters and the chocolate and the mangoes and the berries, that's I literally have that every day. And that is
Oh,
snack. So yeah.
that sounds
Well,
right. I love it. I'm a snack person, so I always gotta get snacks. So I just need to know what your favorites are, and now I have a new one to check out because I didn't know that was a thing.
well, they're a
These
thing.
Doritos.
Yeah, they're a thing. They're good. They're
Good
damn
to know.
good.
So if you had to give out any writing advice to anyone who might be listening who wants to publish a book, what advice would you give them?
I know you probably have it and you've been sitting on it, so let it go. Um, with writing, there is no such thing as perfection, and you gotta let it go. Because if not, you're gonna probably over edit and second guess yourself, and it's not going to be how you crafted it to originally be. So let it fly and trust your gut, because oftentimes your gut is telling you the right thing to do.
That's a really good one. And I think kind of along the same lines is, you're going to get a lot of people giving you advice, and especially if you got like beta readers, to really trust your gut when you get that feedback,
Mhm,
because everyone's got an opinion, right? And if you
mhm.
have 5 beta readers and they're giving you 5 different opinions about something, you got to go with what feels right to you. Because in the end, it's
Yeah,
your book,
yeah,
you want to make sure that it stays true to you and to your story. So yeah, I think trusting your gut is super, super important. And you can always make tweaks. And
mhm.
sometimes you just got to let it go.
Let it go.
Just
Let it
let it
go.
go.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know. I'm sending in my next book, and I'm like, I could keep working on this, or I could just let it go,
let it go.
because my editor will tell me now we're not. But I could spend like 2 hours perfecting a sentence, and then she cuts it. So it's like, I'm just gonna let it go. Just letting it go. Um, what are you working on next?
So I am in the process with my composition notebook. I am writing the third book in the Chance at Love series, which is Madison and Preston's book. So it is a second chance. They were together 15 years ago. Something happens, and the singles retreat is a magical place because it brings a lot of people together unexpectedly. So that's going to be the first book where I have flashbacks to where, they spent a time in Paris together. And if you
Mm.
read Miles Apart, and if you know what Ravenous is, keep your membership card.
Oh
Um,
goodness.
so yeah.
So this is gonna be
So
another spicy one.
yeah, this one I have to sort of like bring everything full circle. So there's that, and that will be the first book that I release in 2025, probably early summer. Um, and then the next book that's coming out in 2025 will be the first in a rugby romance series. So I am the wife of an engineer by day who has played rugby for like the past 20 plus years. So if you read Ella Gets the D, Julian, the main character, played rugby on the side. He was a lawyer by day. And Antonio is getting the first book in the rugby romance series. And that is a one night stand that went wrong or went left. So went
Oh,
and left too. So yeah.
oh. So how many books are you planning in that series? Or do you
I
not have
don't know.
one yet?
Yeah. So like one thing that's weird about me, and this is like advice I wouldn't give it as advice, is I'll plot characters, but I don't plot the story. So I kind of know how I want it to start and I kind of know how I want it to end, but I don't know the middle. So depending on the side characters, it could be I'm aiming for 3 books, but I don't even know who the side characters are. There's maybe like 2 stories I could think
Mhm.
of, but if any side characters pop up, they'll get their own
How
book.
many players are there on a rugby team?
I want to say that there is, oh gosh, I'm gonna get cussed out if I get this wrong, like 15 on a field at one time. It's either 11 or 15. I should know this. I think it's 15.
So, I mean, I'm seeing an opportunity for a really big series.
I know, but I don't want to have like a 18 book series. There's at least 3 stories in my head. Antonio, then there's one with a single dad and the fictitious mayor of Buffalo that may or may not be based on my real life friend who's a city councilwoman, with her
Ooh.
permission. And then a former professional, because this is a professional rugby team. Um, the coach used to play and he's really grumpy and scorned, and there may be a ray of
Mm.
sunshine that comes in. So at least 3. But if folks like other folks, then we could play around with some other possibilities.
Okay. I'm kind
Yeah.
of digging these story ideas or character ideas, I suppose, since
Yeah.
that's what that's what you
I
got
got, I got
in.
nothing else. Nothing
But you
else
know
there.
what? Those characters are calling my name, so I don't know. I'm just
All right.
I'm there. Yeah. So, we'll just do a couple more questions, and then I see that there is at least one question in the chat. What are some of your author goals?
To be a USA Today bestseller. I would love to do that as an indie author, which I don't know if I have to like sell a kidney on the black market or what it will take. I know it's possible. The New York Times one, I don't think anymore.
Yeah,
I
New
think
York Times is that's like
it's
a
whatever.
mystery. That's
Yeah.
like they're just like sprinkle some stuff here and then
Yeah, yeah. But I live in the land of delusion. So to be a USA Today bestseller, I would love to sell, or I guess license or whatever the term is, a spec script or spec scripts for some of my books to become miniseries or movies like on a digital or streaming platform, but do it under Frenchy Press because I want like Frenchy Press Studios. But most importantly, I would love to continue to build community with readers. So all the other things like the accolades and the titles would be great, but just rocking with the people who enjoy shenanigans. And if folks are looking for an escape, I would love for it to be a page turner. And so yeah, just building relationships with folks is at the core of why I do this. So that.
and so where can people find your books if they want to get a copy?
Yes, well, a lot of the books are in different indie bookstores. So always shop indie and start with Love Sweet Arrow.
Woo!
Yes, the ebook is on Amazon, so you can do it that way. If you want like a signed copy, I keep pointing here because you can't see it, but if you want any signed copies, you can go to thefrenchypress.com for that and like some bookish goodies, but they're out in the atmosphere, but definitely start with indie bookstores first. We should be supporting them.
And anyone who is in the Toledo, Ohio area can come see you on the 2nd of November
Yes.
at the
And you
Toledo
too.
Library Romance Con, and it's a free event. Um, if you want to go to the book signing, correct? That's right.
Yeah, I don't know if it's sold out though.
I think for the book signing, isn't that anyone can go to that?
We'll come find out.
Yeah,
I will
go
also be on the
check it out.
spicy romance book panel. So that should be fun.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, let's see. There was definitely a question in the chat, so let's check it out. Okay, Teresa asked, do you feel that writing romance with more mature characters is more difficult, given that the majority of romance is still dominated with characters between the ages of, I, I'm paraphrasing, of 19 and 28 years old?
I don't think so. But then again, I'm very unserious. So I feel like there's a big misconception that once you turn 30 or go 35 and beyond, that you're a perfect communicator, you have your life together, and everything is so polished. And so I play against that stereotype, and I write very unserious things with a lot of mess and good tingle. So my characters are going to be like 35 and up. They don't have it together, but they figure it out. And it's not difficult for me because I don't have it all together and I'm still figuring it out. And I turned 40 um, back in September, so last month. So I like it. And I also feel like there's starting to be an appetite. I read a lot of indie books, and so I think about Tati Richardson, who writes a lot of what might be considered mature characters, and some other people. So it's very commonplace for me, but there's definitely, a seat at the table for us elder millennials and folks who are older because still getting down and still going through it.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. My characters are always in their 30s. I mean, my series are with archaeologists, so
Yeah.
just they have to be of a certain age, otherwise it's just not realistic for them to have the jobs that they have.
Mhm.
But people in their 30s still date, people in their 40s, people in their 50s still date, and I think there are a lot of really great tropes that take advantage of those types of relationships like second chance
Mhm.
or enemies to lovers or best friend friends to lovers, where you already have this relationship with the person. And sometimes that relationship can be something that maybe started when you were still kids, but I feel like there's when you're a little bit more mature, you're approaching your relationships so much differently than when you're 20 years old. I was literally just talking about this with one of my friends today, where we're like, man, back in the day, just did so many, just like treated relationships so much differently than you treat them now. And I don't know, I think it's fun to be able to like explore those different dynamics.
Yeah, like there's different life stages. Like with Ella Gets the D, that's a divorce romantic comedy about a woman who's turning 40 who is going through divorce, but also falls in love with her best friend's younger brother, who's 8 years younger. You also have folks who maybe didn't have what might be considered like their whole phase, or, you know, sort of explore the landscape of dating, but now they're older. So, like, to your point, there's definitely a mix, and there's a lot of area to be creative and play around. I just think that folks have this misconception that once you turn a certain age, you like shrivel and turn gray, and then you're close to death. And I feel like life starts at 40. And so I'm just now feeling comfortable and confident and not giving a flip. And so I want to reflect that in books while also making the characters stumble too, to show that it's okay to be perfectly imperfect past
Mhm.
20 something.
Hmm. I agree. I am here for all the mature romances
Yes.
and for all the elder millennials as
Yes.
well. I don't see any other questions in the chat. Just making sure. So I can just ask you more questions
Okay.
because I've got more. I mean, um, so back to Miles Apart, which by the way, I love a good pun title. Um, why do you think Miles and Emma are so good together?
They have twin flame energy, which I know that could do this where you see your mirror, but it's questionable if you end up together. I just feel like they're different sides of a similar coin. they have different upbringings, but they're very similar in how they move with the confidence, and they just have that flame. And with their love is a willingness of submission to a certain degree, because that comes with like the love and the trust that they develop, that they have each other. So I just think they're electric. They were one of my favorite characters, or couples to write. Um, and I just love how they are separately and what they bring out of each other together. They they nurture the soft sides that they might not have been always able to show in real life, but they keep it to themselves. So it's like a certain level of intimacy that they don't reveal to other people and they share with each other.
Well, and they both kind of start the book with, they're set in their ways, they're
Mhm.
not dating, they're doing their thing. Um, and which is great, like to be comfortable in your own body, to be confident in what you're doing. But then to like find someone who's like your complement.
Mhm.
Because it's not that they're necessarily a match, it's that they complement each other really well.
Mm. Yeah.
All right, I see another question. Okay, also from Teresa. Thank you, Teresa, for chiming in. How did you make Madison a sympathetic and lovable character when she seems so awful in the 7 Month Itch? And even in the start of this one, you're like, who are you? Get
Yeah.
out of here.
So I knew because of Preston in the 7 Month Itch that I would have to contend with Madison at some point because of their history. But I wanted her to have a realistic character arc. And I also wanted to hold space for the imperfections. There are folks who might consider themselves reformed or former mean girls or mean people. And I wanted to see what that looked like. Not everybody who operates or navigates life like Madison is apologetic or, kind of looks at themselves internally, which you'll see in her story. Like, I was kind of a bitch. And looking back, I should have done things differently, like the humanity. And so, yeah, in the 7 Month Itch, I made her not likable. Miles Apart, you start to see a little bit of glimpses where, oh, maybe she's not exactly who I thought she was. And then in her book, because of the flashbacks, you'll see what happened in the past that shapes how she shows up today. It doesn't excuse it, but with that second chance romance, it'll be about the relationship with her and Preston, obviously, but also the relationship with herself and sort of the world around her and how she shows up and what it's like to forgive yourself for harm that you might have caused. So yeah, it'll be a redemption story. And the only thing that I hope is that people just give it a chance, because I got some people who are in the Madison Hate Club. That's fine, but hopefully by the end of that story, you might want to put her in the group chat, even if she's not your favorite. Maybe you'll tolerate her.
It's like a Regina George from Mean Girls
Yeah,
Redemption story. I honestly, like the minute you said that, Mean Girl Redemption, I'm like, yeah, why haven't we seen that? I'm kind of reminds
yeah.
me of what was that one book? Something Borrowed. And then
Oh,
the second book was about the best friend who was awful. And it's like, how are you gonna make me like this person?
like so, like this. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
But
because
I will
awful people, they got their backstories too.
they will. And I will say this. Madison will get a taste of her own medicine in her
Mm,
book. So she is not getting out of this unscathed. So
okay.
yeah.
I'm ready for that. That sounds great. Let's see. I'm looking back at my list. Make sure I didn't miss anything. Um, All right. Well, I always like to ask this question because I think this kind of tells a little bit about an author, about what are you reading right now? And what do you like other than romance? Oh, this question from Teresa is, thank you, Teresa. Kind of along the same lines. So who are your go-to authors?
Oh my
Who you
goodness.
know is going
Okay.
to give you a good read?
Well, obviously, well, maybe not obviously to some, but Kennedy Ryan, and my nickname for her is Kendrick, like Kendrick Lamar. Um, she owes me therapy money for all of her books. I could never write in that way, and I mean that in the best of compliments. I read a lot of indie romance, and I've been in my hood phase since spring. Is I started picking up what's considered urban romances, but
Mhm.
a lot of these books don't necessarily have to take place in an urban environment. So I call them, my hood romances. And so I'm reading a series by, oh goodness, let me get this right because I don't pulled it up, by Jaquel, and it's the Capone series. So it's not mob, but it's really good, and it's about these fraternal twins, and they each have like their own series of books. And so you have to like read each of those, but then they're interconnected. And their sister Capri just got one. So I've been reading that. Deja Brew from Celestine
Oh,
Martin.
yes.
I'm really just reading like all hood. The Devil Wears Baccarat. Um, Lady Killer is on my list from L.M. Ramirez. Um, Toying with Temptation from A.H. Cunningham is on my list. So there's a lot of, yeah, there's some spice here. And then Lady Killer is obviously by the name. It's a dark romance.
Okay. All right. Well, those were all the questions that I have. But this has been so great just getting to
Thank
chat with you
you.
a little bit more and talk about your book and hear about what you're working on. Again, I mean, it's just so funny that we've crossed paths, but I don't know how I missed you at Steamy Lit. I seriously, how did that happen? I feel like
Well,
I
you
walked
had a
the room,
long line. And then
but
also,
I walked the room because I wanted to like see everyone's tables, like to see how everyone like decorates their tables. It's so fun, just like everyone's
yeah, I
stuff.
had the cinnamon rolls, and then we were tabled very close to each other at Love Y'all Book Fest, but literally the 7 Month Itch came out 3 weeks before. And I remember you had like this fantastic line that just like went past my table and kept shooting. But because I have like a little book menu, because nobody knows me and they could see like the different things that I write. Some of the people ended up circling back to get the 7 Month Itch. So I should
Oh,
say thank you.
oh, you're welcome. I was not anticipating that. Seriously
It's
was not.
amazing though.
Yeah, it's been pretty fun. I
Yeah.
I love writing. I love going to book events and like being around other book people and talking about books
Yeah.
and the romance community is so great and uh,
Well, I'm
just
looking forward to Temple of Swoon, and you have some really beautiful covers too. So I feel like that's starting to be part of your brand.
yes. Well, and they just emailed me to get working on the not that I'm working on it, but to send over my ideas for the third one. So we'll see what they come up with.
Nice.
Excited about.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. Well, any more questions? Teresa, any more questions for us? Come on. We got a couple more minutes. No pressure.
Yeah. And I hope the Ravens are winning, Dad.
Yeah, because if not, then wow.
I know.
Just wow. I mean, I guess he did buy a bunch of copies of your book, so we'll give it to him this one time. And he can
Yeah.
still watch it later, right?
He can, but it was just the way that he dismissed me. Like, oh, what time does it start? Send me the link. And I told him, and he was like, the Ravens are playing. I'm not watching that. And I was like, thanks, Dad.
What time did they start?
Maybe like an hour ago.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Monday night. Well, it started an hour ago on our end, so I don't know how she's in Arizona.
Okay. Because I'm over in Seattle, and I mean, it's not even 5 o'clock yet. It seems a little
Oh, wait,
early.
it starts at 8:15. What am I talking about? Monday night football. So he could have watched this. He just tuned in.
Wow.
Thanks,
Wow,
Dad.
Dad.
Thanks, Dad. Your only child. Thank you.
Wow. Okay. Now we know, Dad. He'll watch it later. I feel he will.
I hope so.
All right.
Hey.
Well,
Well, that goes ahead and closes out our event. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining us this evening or night, wherever you are. And thank you so much to Tanvi and Joe for taking the time out of your day to come to this event, for letting us listen in on your lovely conversation. Everyone, please go out and buy both of their books. They really are amazing. So thank you, everyone, and we will see you hopefully for our next event.